Welcome, everybody, to the Rob Black Show on this glorious day, October 7th. It's October 7th, in case you did not know, and it's a Tuesday. That's what October 7th falls on, and it's 2014, and we're still here, despite Ebola, despite gay marriage now being legal in another 11 states, which brings us up to about 30 states. More than half the country's states got the gays getting married there. A little over 60% of all Americans live where the gays can get married. We are still alive, regardless of ISIS. We are basically still here, even though there's things that are going on that, depending on who you listen to, they would inform you that it's the end of the world. Yes, the end of the world. But now we are strong, we persevere, because we are Americans. God damn it, Americans. Anyways, let's jump into a whole bunch of news of the day. Yeah, news of the day. You know, it's 11 o'clock, so when we broadcast this show and you listen to it, sometimes the news is still developing. So we either are not privy to all the information that develops throughout the day, because we are not the local yahoos here on LA Talk Radio, where every 10 minutes they have a news break with some girl talking about state and local officials combating, dirty water in the pipes of Burbank or something like that. So we get our news in the morning, and we'll have some updates throughout the day, but some of the stories that we actually talk about and have to dig up because certain news organizations don't report on it, we have to wait until the next day. So one of the big news stories that hit the wire late yesterday, and it's been making its rounds all evening, and that was gay marriage. Yes, that dreaded word that so many right-wingers hate. I'm not real sure why, considering that, well, let's face it, some of them right-wingers, I got to imagine, would benefit from the gay marriage. Eventually they would, I would think, like to come out of that closet they're hiding in and maybe get married to their partners. But regardless, gay marriage and the dreaded words that the right-wingers, and of course I'm talking about Republicans, hate, and that is the Supreme Court basically legalized gay marriage without legalizing gay marriage. And what that means is simply that you had a bunch of challenges to gay marriage bans in about 11 states. Colorado, Indiana, Kansas, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And so what happened was you had gay marriage that was going through the court systems in these states. And ultimately, they were approved. But you had, in one way, shape, or form, the states challenging these rulings. So what you had was in a state like Kansas, where Bromback, that evil bastard, basically amended their state's constitution and said no gays, and, the whole rigmarole. And it went through the court systems, and you had state appeals courts basically overturning lower decisions or affirming lower decisions. And ultimately, it all hinged on the appeal to the Supreme Court to hear a gay marriage case. So you have a appeals court saying, no, what that lower judge in that case ruled was wrong, and we're saying you can have gay marriage. So what the state did is said, nope, we're not going to issue licenses. We're going to put this on hold because we're appealing to the Supreme Court. And we're going to have the Supreme Court hear this case. And until the Supreme Court hears this case, even though the court ruled in our state that you all can get married, you're going to have to wait because we want the Supreme Court to rule on this because we're confident that they will take this case and rule in favor of saying gays can't marry. So what happened was when these cases came up in the Supreme Court dockets where they can decide if they want to hear them or not, basically the Supreme Court rejected to take these cases on, which means it goes back to those court decisions. They basically say, hey, you guys basically sorted it out already. You basically have decisions. We're not hearing it. There's nowhere else your laws can go, considering we've said no. So if the high ruling court in your state said gay marriage is cool, guess what? Gay marriage is cool. Next. So by default, that's what I'd like to say. By default, the Supreme Court has ruled that gay marriage is cool. And that's what it means. Gay marriage is acceptable. And ultimately, you have 11 states now that just added that gay marriage is hip, it's cool, and it's legal. So a bunch of these states have now started issuing licenses. What happens is the county clerk's office has to do the license and put the governor's names on it, and the whole thing. And yet, you still got a couple of these states that are being defiant, which is kind of funny because there's nowhere else they can go. And by them being defiant over the Supreme Court's decision, it really makes now what they're doing illegal. It really does. And who is the leader of the defiance? Senator Bromback, a.k.a. Governor Bromback. Remember, Bromback was a senator for 8 trillion years. I mean, he was a senator for a while. He was actually one of the driving forces and getting my case, my obscenity case, going in the Justice Department and eventually putting me in prison. He had committees on pornography, obscenity, and actually talked about me in these committees that were documented in our documentary that we have. So Brombach has a long history of being this moral compass for the world, and so Brombach is now the governor of the great state of Kansas, which I might add is in a crisis of epic proportions when it comes to how their state is run, because Brombach, when he became governor, basically ran on a platform of, hey, you know how us Republicans like low taxes? Well, I'm going to do one better. I'm going to run on no taxes. Yes, we're going to have no taxes in Kansas. What's that? That's how we pay for things of the state, is with tax money? Well, we're just going to pray to God, and God will deliver us immaculate money. That's what he will. Just like immaculate conceptions, he will deliver us immaculate money. So what happened was months and months and months went by, and because Brombach cut taxes to such a level where even rich people in Kansas, believe it or not, there are some rich people in Kansas, were going, I gotta pay something. I feel like a complete dirty shit heel by not just even throwing in a buck. Come on, I gotta throw in a buck, for Christ's sakes. That they are short in every area as far as their government in Kansas and how they need to run, that they are in deficits. They are their unemployment is up. I mean, literally, Kansas is in such a mess that they are on the verge of voting in a Democrat to be the governor of Kansas. I mean, Brombach is so right-wing that even Republicans are saying, yo, bro, you're too right-wing for even us Republicans of Kansas. Like, that's how extreme Brombach is. I mean, their education system in Kansas is completely in the crap house because they have no money to pay for anything, because they have no tax revenue. I mean, literally, check the statistics of what's happening in Kansas, and you'll go, oh my God, Rob Black is right. So, this governor, Brombach, has said that he is basically not going to authorize marriage licenses to be given out by the county clerk. He told the county clerk, "Now, I don't care what our state judges said, our federal judges. I don't care what the Supreme Court said. I don't care. I'm Senator Brombach, and the people of Kansas voted. They were with me in amending our Constitution that says marriage is between a man and a woman, and death to fags, so fuck off." That's basically what Senator Brombach said. And he's not giving no marriage licenses to nobody. Again, this is kind of a defiant criminal act. I mean, it really is. You have judges saying gay marriage is legal, and basically what Kansas is doing is against the Constitution. You've had the Supreme Court say, hey, Kansas, what you're doing is wrong. We're not hearing your case. Let these people get married. And Senator Brownback's going, nope, 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 nope. I've got all these marriage licenses in my drawer, and nobody's getting them. Nope, nobody's getting the marriage licenses. They're in my drawer. They're in my lockbox. I got thousands of them, all right? And nobody's getting them. Nobody's getting them ever. Ever. So you better vote me out and let the next governor come on in. And basically that's what's happening. I mean, Brownback is this defiant because he knows that he's all but gone as the governor of Kansas. Literally, he's down in the polls to a level that is beyond the points of error. You know, normally you have like a 3-point error of margin of error. So if it's a 43-40 lead, you're looking at probably a 1-point lead or even a dead tie. You're always at about a 3-point margin of error. Brownback is losing by more than 3 points. So it's all but done as the race for governor of Kansas. So Brownback is just kind of giving that one last fuck you to the people of Kansas, saying, hey, I'm not issuing anything, and you're all going to have to wait until I lose the election and the new governor comes in January, in the new year. So all you homos, fuck off, and you're going to have to wait. That's what Brownback's saying. That's what he's saying. So as you have some of these states rejoicing and people going to the county clerks and getting their marriage licenses and starting to get married today. I mean, people started yesterday night. You've got Kansas who's saying, nah. You ain't rejoicing, and you're still going to have to wait. It's going to be a while. And, oh, by the grace of the Almighty God that shines down on me, should I manage to pull this election out, you homos are never going to get married, because I am going to defy and snub my nose at the Supreme Court and the other judges' decisions in my state, and these licenses are never coming out of my lockbox. Matter of fact, I'm going to take these licenses home and put them under my bedroom bed. Put them in my mattress. So there you have the gay marriage news. More states are added to the growing total. I mean, you're up to 30 now, for Christ's sakes. You literally have more than half of the country with gay marriage in this this land of ours, and 60% of the American population live in a area that has gay marriage. That's huge. I mean, that's huge. We always talk about these polls based on presidential elections. And what I mean by that is, when you hear a presidential election and the president wins with a 52 to 49 margin, or a 56 to 48 margin, you are basically a landslide winner. well, if you have gay marriage that is more than half of the states, I mean, more than half. Listen, if you're dealing with a 25 gets you about half the states, and we're at 30, we're more than half, ladies and gentlemen, and that's not a slim margin. That's considered in the political realm a landslide. If you got 60% of the American people being part of states that have gay marriage, that's a landslide when you're looking at presidential elections and winning by a little more than 50%. And in some instances, when Bill Clinton ran and you had Ross Perot in the running, and Bill Clinton won presidency with less than 50%, 60% of the American people being in states of gay marriage, I would say gay marriage is here. Gay marriage is basically the law of the land, and it's only a matter, I would say, of another year until the rest of these states conform. Because now that the Supreme Court has stated that they will not hear this case, no other federal judge in any of these states that currently are not letting gay marriage happen is eventually going to have to happen. It's going to have to happen. So there's the big news. Gay marriage, alive and well. And I must say, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't feel any different. I really don't. I don't feel that our world that we know has digressed into show tunes. I don't see Liza Minnelli or Barbara Streisand flags being waved over Oklahoma or South Carolina and saying these are a gay state, a land of homosexuals run amok. Literally, it's the same as it was a year ago. More states have just come aboard. This notion that gay marriage is somehow going to lead to anarchy is just complete lunacy when it comes to the Republican think tank and their mindset. And again, it makes you wonder just what type of people are part of the Republican Party when they are just so obsessed with guns and prohibiting gay people from getting married. It's just bizarre. And then just sprinkle in women getting equal pay, basically saying that a woman can't control her own body, then throw in religion on top of that, and you have the makings of radicals. When we talk about Islam as being something that is extremely radical, and we talk about Muslims, and you see these TV shows where people are arguing about Islam and saying that the religion and Muslims are terrorists, and you have one group saying not all Muslims are terrorists and it's bigoted. I'll tell you, to say that Islam is a breeding ground for extreme uh, uh, extreme thoughts that are horrific, ideas that are damaging to the United States and the American way of life. I would argue that Republicans and your right wing Republican extremists are just as dangerous as your jihadists. Republicans don't necessarily decapitate you on video, but they definitely do death and destruction in other ways, in more secret ways. What they're doing in Texas with all of the Planned Parenthoods, again, is a very, very secret way to decapitate individuals. It really is. Senator or Governor Brownback and his defiance when it comes to gay marriage is the same underhanded, sneaky way to decapitate people without putting on a hood and a knife and sawing someone's head off and posting it on YouTube. Again, Republicans, and I'm not talking about your moderate Republicans. No different than when somebody says Muslims and they're all bad, and somebody says, wait a minute. There's a group of Muslims that are bad, and the other billion of them are cool. They're hip. They're fun. They wear burqas that are bedazzled, and you see them walking around at the mall. They're wonderful people. It's the same thing with the Republicans. You could say that a huge group of Republicans are not extremists, are not radicals, and they believe in a lot of the same values that we believe in, except when it comes to little things, they will disagree, but it will be civil, and they, at the end, will have a healthy debate. Okay, but there are a group of Republicans that are radicals, that are nut jobs. They bomb abortion clinics. They prohibit gays from marrying. They promote levels of extreme thoughts that promote violence against minorities. They are completely in favor of a nation of gun-happy whack jobs that lead to individuals shooting up movie theaters and going on war game-like missions in Pennsylvania, shooting troopers. So, whether you're a Muslim or you're a Republican, I would say both have serious issues with their extreme elements of their faith. And let's face it, in this United States that we operate in, live in, being a Republican, being a Democrat is basically the same as being in a religious group. People practice their political affiliation at times more than they do their religious affiliation. So I would say that the political power structure in our country is just as powerful as religion is. So There you go. Gay marriage, Senator Brownback, aka Governor Brownback, and the 11 states that are now having gay marriage. And to cap it off, and then we'll move on, I was surprised to see that Colorado had a gay marriage ban. Colorado, that's the state that made marijuana recreational, and you could just wander around Colorado getting high, right? Am I wrong on that? Though I thought Colorado was one of those states where you could just wander around and get high. So Colorado was cool with smoking weed, but you couldn't smoke cock. How does that work? How does that work? How does it work that Colorado was basically one of the first states to have an extreme position when it comes to marijuana and having it legal and basically being able to use marijuana as you were drinking a beer or smoking a cigarette? But gay marriage was something that was forbidden. I never realized that. Call me naive, call me an ignorant talk show host, but I did not know that Colorado was one of those states. I thought Colorado was a very liberal area. You have guns being all over the place, considering you got some of the biggest massacres that have ever happened in our history being conducted in Colorado. Whether it's the movie theater or the schools, you have legalized marijuana and gay marriage. Like I said, I thought they were very liberal. So I guess when it comes to anal sex between two men, that's a definite no-no. Well, guess what? Now you can get high and you can have sex with another man in his buttocks. So rock on, Colorado. The other states, I would have just without thinking would imagine they were banning gay marriage. Wyoming, of course. Virginia, of course. Utah, of course. Oklahoma, of course. Both Carolinas, of course, of course. I'd say Wisconsin might have been a little surprising. The cheeseheads there, I'm a little surprised. And Indiana, maybe a little surprised, but at the end of the day, not too surprised. So there you go. Gay marriage, legal in the 11 states. Ooh, but I'm still alive. That's all right. The world hasn't ended. Well, let's shift to where the world could possibly end. And that's a new Ebola update. I know. Ebola. It's the disease that never goes away. It's kind of like herpes. You just, once you get it, you always got it. And hopefully you just get some Valtrex and make those herpes sores go away. And if you got them herpes scabs, you don't pick at them too much so they leave scars. And then you gotta hope you never get an outbreak, kind of like Ebola. They say there's no cure. You just hopefully can take some experimental drugs and you can fight it on your own, and then you're cured. Or it is in your system and then it goes away, or it doesn't go away, but you won't die and you won't give it to other people. But hey, it could come back. This whole Ebola thing is very perplexing on so many levels. But the newest Ebola update is a Spain health worker. Yes, Ebola is now in Spain. Yes, it is in Spain. So, you have a health worker in Spain, a nurse's assistant, who has come down with Ebola. Yes, she came down with Ebola. How did she come down with Ebola? She was treating a couple missionaries who, go figure, had just returned from West Africa. They were working in the Ebola hotspots, and they gave the healthcare worker Ebola. So, she is, of course, in the plastic bubble. She's in the doctor care, and they're hoping that they can fight the disease with some experimental drugs. They're hoping that they have the quarantine right, and anybody that had contact with her is quarantined. Basically, they're hoping that they have this contained, because if they don't have it contained, you have the makings of one of them maps. And I've said this before on the show. One of the maps that you see in any type of outbreak movie that shows the United States and then the world being overrun by some virus. So the new news is the nurse's assistant in Spain has Ebola, but it's being contained, and hopefully there will be no more cases associated with this nurse's assistant, and she will get treatment. She'll be all right, and life will go on. That's what we're hoping. But I'll tell you something. When I hear people on the radio, or I hear people on TV, or I hear people on different talk shows kind of downplay the whole Ebola situation. And I hear them say, now it's Ebola. Don't you all remember when it was swine flu? Don't you all remember when it was SARS? Don't you all remember when it was, whooping cough? And matter of fact, don't you realize that last year alone, couple of hundred people died of the flu? This is no different. No, I take extreme issues with people downplaying this. I take extreme issues with talk show hosts or people getting on these programs and downplaying this. And I take issue with the fact that the people that are speaking out the strongest on this Ebola situation are Republicans. And I hate the fact that when I talk like this, it makes me sound like some of these Republican assholes. And it burns my balls. And it burns my balls that there are no Democrats that can have the same fire about some of these issues. It burns my balls that Democrats always have to take such a passive, a passive, I'm trying to think of words to not be sexist or overly not politically correct, but I can't think of any other word for a Democrat to say when they are so much like pussies. I know it's horrible. How do I say that? I can't even say that on a national show. But the notion that a Democrat can never take a stand and be hard on things like Ebola or situations when it comes to our borders, and they always have to take this passive approach, like, well, we can't shut down our travel from Africa, and we have to look at this as not a nationalist situation, but it's a global situation, and we have to be the leader. It's like we always have to be the Mother Teresa of the world. But the minute you take the stance of, we don't have to be that way, you're regarded as a Republican. And it sucks that Democrats can't have views on certain issues that are tough. And that is so disturbing to me. And when it comes to Ebola, the notion that this is just some swine flu or some SARS, and it's something that we have had before, and people are getting hysterical, and Republicans are stoking the fires. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this is completely different than SARS and swine flu, because SARS and swine flu and these other diseases and the common cold, as they would say in the United States, all of these things never, ever were like Ebola and what is happening in the hot spot of where Ebola started and what is happening. When you hear someone say, oh, hundreds and hundreds of people die in the United States from the flu, you don't hear about that. That's so misleading, because the notion that a perfectly healthy person is walking down the street in the United States and all of a sudden they open a door and the flu gets on them, because somebody who had a flu before them has their bodily fluids on the door, and that person who's perfectly healthy opens that door, and then of course at some point rubs their eye, and the next day the flu kills them, is bullshit. The misleading reports on the flu that kills people, a lot of those people are either very young children in extremely poor areas of the United States, or they're very old people, and when you're old and you stub your toe and get a blood blister, you could die from it. So the notion that healthy people in the United States are dropping like flies because they get the flu and nobody hears of that is bullshit. Healthy people in the United States don't just die of the flu. It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. That is a bullshit statement. It does not happen. And when you talk about swine flu and SARS and these other diseases that we have heard of and could possibly be coming to the United States, never, ever, ever were in the proportions of Ebola in West Africa. Some of you people that are spouting off this laid-back attitude of oh, Ebola's coming to America, it's going to kill us all. Yeah! All you people need to stop that. Listen, you need to actually study a little bit more of this disease, where it started, when it started, and what it has done in the past couple months. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to my blogs, there's a point a month or 2 or 3 months ago when the Ebola outbreak started to take shape, and we did stories about Ebola and the fact that there's no cure, and the fact that we're not helping the African people because they're black and Americans don't like black people. We started this a couple months ago. If you go to my blog and you look at the death statistics that we talked about then, I didn't make them up. These are death statistics that we got off the news wires. And at the time, you're talking about 1,000 people died, talking about 800 people died, talking about possibly 2,000 infected. Right now, you're up to almost 8,000 people infected. You're up to 3,000 and 4,000 people that have died. I mean, this disease has evolved at a massive rate. SARS never did that. Swine flu never did. When swine flu came on the scene, you didn't hear of pockets of a country that had thousands of people dying of swine flu every day. You didn't hear of that. Do your facts before you go on a radio station and spout off BS. Do your facts. Hollywood actors, from Ben Affleck to other bleeding heart liberals that make us liberals look bad. Do your facts. Swine flu did not have the impact on who it touched, where it touched, what happened that Ebola. Ebola is something that is ravaging Sierra Leone, Morovia. It's amazing what this disease is doing. Swine flu, SARS, bird flu. None of these things, killer bees, none of these things have done what Ebola is doing. Nothing. None of these diseases have ever killed American workers who have gone there to help try to fight this disease. You never heard of American healthcare workers in areas where there were SARS that got infected with SARS and then died. What other areas that a disease has started where you've had Doctors Without Borders and other American health facilities that have gone to these areas where they have helped people and have been infected and either died or had to be airlifted out of these areas back to the United States in an emergency setting and had to be saved. Never happened with swine flu, never happened with bird flu, never happened with SARS, never happened with these things. So Ebola is completely different. Completely different. Completely and utterly different. And for people to try to tell you otherwise, they are doing a disservice to all of us Americans. A disservice to all of us Americans. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is plain and simple. And if you look at Ebola on a level of how AIDS started and how AIDS spread, you're not on the exact same playing field, but you definitely are on the same sport wavelength. Where AIDS started in the 80s, okay, and it was brought here from Africa. No coincidence, but brought here from Africa. And the concept that when AIDS hit the United States and these small pockets of the country, because AIDS wasn't festering in Oklahoma, AIDS wasn't festering in Utah. You know, you had AIDS festering in New York. You had AIDS festering out here in California, San Francisco. And this disease started small and grew into a epidemic. Now, AIDS is different because you can't get it from sneezing on somebody or sharing their sweat, per se. You have to have a blood-to-blood, semen-to-blood contact. But ultimately, it has spread as if it was an Ebola-style disease. Because, let's face it, it's a sex disease, and at the end of the day, your sexual impulses override anything. That's why people are in prison for rape, people are in prison for sexual assault, and people have AIDS because it's all based around sex. And when you're in a bar and you meet a chick and you're both kind of buzzed and you get in your car or you go back to your house or your apartment or wherever and you're making out and you're grabbing each other's titties and your ass, your balls, or whatever it is, that impulse of, hey, you got a rubber? Does anybody got, that person looks clean, overrides the health factor. So in turn, you have sex and poof! If one of you has the AIDS, 9 out of 10 times, the other person's going to get the AIDS because you just had unprotected sex. Shooting up drugs. When you're looking to get high and you're a junkie and you don't have a needle and somebody is shooting up, you're not thinking, oh, I wonder if that needle is dirty. You're thinking, I need to get high. You inject, boop, you get the AIDS. So, on that level, you put that with Ebola, because Ebola, you actually can contract the disease without having to fuck. So if you're sick and you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, which can manifest over a couple days, but those couple of days you can be infectious and still be functioning, still be going to the store, getting flu medicine, that period of time, your bodily fluids are infectious. Your sweat is infectious. You being upstairs in your apartment going, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not feeling real good, but I think it's just a cold. I'm going to sweat this thing out. And you go to the gym and start sweating your Ebola sweat all over the gym equipment. That's possible. And then other people contract Ebola. So if you put that whole thing together, you definitely have AIDS and Ebola on that same scale. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were never able to contain AIDS. If you think about it, how many millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people have AIDS? HIV/AIDS. How many? It's staggering how many people. There is no cure. There's just drugs that let you live with it. That's all. But we didn't stop AIDS. We have millions of dollars worth of campaigns that we put out that says, hey, if you do this, you could get AIDS. If you could do this, you get AIDS. And people will still look at a sign and go, so you mean if I share needles with somebody, I could contract AIDS if they're infected? Fuck it. You mean if I have unprotected sex, I could get AIDS if the other person is also infected? Fuck it. Doesn't matter. We do it anyways. And now we have Ebola, and it is ravaging the West African region, no different than AIDS was ravaging Africa. No different than AIDS was ravaging New York and California. And in the 80s, people were dying and dropping like flies. Same thing. Same exact thing. So when you hear people say, oh, all this hysteria about Ebola, it's not a big deal. It's just like swine flu. You look at them and you say, bullshit. Bullshit. Find me where swine flu killed 3, 4, 5,000 people in a span of 3 months. Find me where they have camps that look like something out of Nazi Germany, where you just have dead bodies rotting on the ground, laying there, bleeding out. Find me where you have swine flu or SARS camps, or bird flu camps, where you have people in hazmat suits walking around and there's barbed wire fences up and there's people inside the barbed wire fences living. Just black people in lounge chairs, just and little kids running around. They're all infected with Ebola. They're all going to die, and they're all quarantined off in these camps surrounded by barbed wire. Find me these SARS camps. You won't. That is why Ebola is different. That is why Ebola, in the span of 3 and 4 months, tripled the amount of people that have died. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be misled by my ultra passive namby-pamby liberals that I'm embarrassed to call my fellow Democrats. Because some of us liberals and some of us Democrats can have a bite to us. Some of us can be a little hard. It's not a all or nothing when it comes to being a liberal. Just because you're labeled a liberal or Democrat doesn't mean you have to sit at Starbucks on an oversized couch drinking Oprah Winfrey chai latte and having conversations with your good Muslim friend while you're discussing jihad and your West African friend Mohammed who has Ebola, but as long as he doesn't fucking touch you with his sick, dying hand, you're cool. You don't have to do those things to be called a liberal. And just because you don't do those things doesn't mean you're a Republican. So, that is Ebola. That is the update. And that is where we are as far as the disease and what is happening. We're still waiting on reports from the Dr. Nancy Siderman, I think her name is, the NBC doctor, you know, the NBC's version of Sanjay Gupta. We're waiting to see what happens with her cameraman. Who knows what's going to happen, but he's getting treatment. He's saying that he's going to fight on. And an interesting thing I heard, and it kind of echoes what I have said about these people with, I would say, a death wish when it comes to either the cameramen in Syria, reporters in Syria, or the cameramen or reporters in Liberia. I guess this cameraman's parents gave an interview and were talking about how they actually told their son that he was crazy for doing what he was doing in West Africa. And they told him that they would prefer him not to be there. They told him that it wasn't fair to their family, that they would have to worry that he would contract Ebola, and for him to just come home, for him not to go there, for him to just not do this type of stuff. So here I am for weeks talking about, yes, cameramen, journalism, getting their heads cut off is horrible, and it's bad, and my heart goes out to the families. But at the end of the day, we are where we are as far as putting ourselves in really crazy, dangerous situations. And when things happen that are bad, we can't be surprised and we can't be shocked. Kind of like a stuntman who is jumping cars and winds up crashing and dying. You don't hear people becoming completely shocked and just beside themselves at how this could have happened, because there's people that say, well, what do you expect? You're trying to jump 350 old Chevy Buicks. And he couldn't clear it, and he crashed and died. That's what happens when you're a stunt man. Oh, the flying Loendas, or the trapeze people. Oh, wow, he was trying to walk across the Empire State Building, and he fell and died. Or wherever they do. Again, that's what happens when you do dangerous stuff. So, when you're running around Syria, and you get kidnapped, and ISIS is like, hey, we're going to cut your head off. People can't be shocked. That's what happens when you're running around in Syria. When you're running around in West Africa, and everywhere you walk is like a new puddle of death when it comes to blood and piss and feces, and everywhere you go is just destruction of life. You can't be surprised if all of a sudden you take your temperature and it's up to 101 and they go, you got Ebola. You can't be, oh my God! Well, duh! Look where you are! So, the family of this cameraman actually has come out and said basically the same things I said. And that's their son, who's possibly going to die in Nebraska. And they said, we told him not to do it. Is that typical parents? They go to see him, they're in the window. He's like, hey, bye. They're like, I told you, you dumb bastard. Look at you now. The goddamn Ebola. Because that's the truth. It's hard to have compassion over just, I feel bad. But it's hard to really feel bad when you are the cause of that disease. It's kind of like the fact that the American people don't really have compassion, if you really want to be technical, for people that die in the military or military vets that got burned all over their face and one arm. I mean, literally, people really don't have compassion for them. If they did, you wouldn't have the VA scandal where you have vets dying because they can't get medical treatment. Literally, you wouldn't have vets dying because they can't get medical treatment. You wouldn't have foundations like Wounded Warriors for these military veterans to get prosthetic limbs. You wouldn't need any of these things because we would have policies in place that says when you serve in the military and you get out, for the rest of your life, you get X amount of money. And if you're wounded in the military, you get another tier of money. And basically, you're taken care of for life by the government. So go relax on an island somewhere. We don't have that. Which means the American people, politicians, say you signed up to fight for our country, and you have to take the risks that come with that. And some of those risks might be death or you being maimed and having no arms or no legs. So if that happens, we'll help you to an extent, but we don't really owe you anything because you're just doing your fucking job. That's how the American people respond to the military. So to have crazy compassion for journalists that travel to Syria and get their heads cut off by terrorists, or cameramen who travel to Morovia or Sierra Leone and get Ebola, when the minute they step foot, they're on ground that's swimming with Ebola, there ain't much compassion. Because if our American people don't have compassion for our own troops, why the fuck are they going to have compassion for a cameraman with Ebola? So that is the way we operate. And it sucks when it comes to our military troops, but let's face it, that's the way it is. And if it wasn't like that, you wouldn't have ads and things of that nature for all of these services for vets, and you wouldn't have the controversy. Anyways, it's the Ebola update, and that is that. It's the Rob Black Show, guys. It is exactly, let me do the time, 12:11. Yes, 12:11. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be sitting at the Magic Desk, where Magic Rob sits. Much like Magic Mike, I produce things, and I dance. And those types of cool. Anyways, it's the Rob Black Show. We'll be right back.